Hi everybody, I wanted to take a minute and record this review of morphology using this language sample. I meant to do it in class, but we ran out of time. But I wanted you to have this so that you have something to kind of walk through and that will support you as you're working through your review number 2 assignment. And prepare you for the exam. So we're just going to look at these items in red. We're going to find them in the language sample. I'm not going to find every variety of option here, but I am going to just try and explain the concept so we can review it and then identify 1 or 2 examples as they are found in the language sample here. So the first one is identify a bound inflectional morpheme. Now, if you remember, these are 2 different components. So bound means that it's one morpheme that has to be stuck to another one, right? It has to be bound to it. And inflectional means that it's inflecting that term somehow. So let's look at utterance number 3, for example. Utterance number 3 says he likes camping. And in this case, the like has an S attached to it. That's a third person singular present tense S. And that is that indicates tense, right? Present tense specifically, and that's one of our 8 inflectional morphemes. So that one is inflectional and it's attached to the word like, so that's bound. So that's a bound inflectional morpheme. Another example would be the past tense ed. If you look at utterance number 7, there's 2 examples in there. They moved. Move is the lexical morpheme. Ed, that's a past tense ed, so tense is inflectional, and it's bound to the word move. Also needed, same thing. Ed is past tense, and it is bound to the word need. We also need to find the second item here, a free grammatical morpheme. Now free means that it can stand by itself as its own word. And then grammatical simply means that it doesn't hold meaning without showing a relationship to something else. So it could be things like pronouns, he, the is an article, right? In utterance 2, the is a grammatical morpheme that can stand on its own, so it's considered free. How about number 6, to, he go to sleep. To is also a free morpheme, but it's grammatical because it holds no other meaning without its relationship to those lexical morphemes. So similarly, the third item on that list is identify a free lexical morpheme. So free, again, means it can stand by itself, and lexical means it can hold meaning all by itself. So there's a gazillion of these here, like floaties, weight, sleep, dirt. All of those plus so many more would be considered free and lexical. Now let's look at for a bound derivational morpheme. So bound, remember, means that it is stuck to another word. It has to be stuck to that word. But we're now looking, instead of for an inflectional morpheme that provides inflection, we're looking for a derivation, meaning it's probably changing the meaning of the word by adding that derivational suffix. So let's see if we can find one, shall we? I don't know if you've seen it in there. It's toward the bottom. It's item number 18, or excuse me, utterance number 18. He floatedly got it, right? There's possibly more than that, but floatedly, the ly at the end would change floated to an adverb, right? That's maybe not the greatest of examples, but it's definitely something that would work for this situation. All right, so the next item here is that we need to find an example of each of Brown's 14 morphemes. So what we're going to do is we're going to first, let's go down the list. So a progressive ing. Now if we look at utterance number 1, there's an ing there, but remember progressive ing means it's marked for aspect, which means it has to be on a word that follows another verb immediately, right? So the sleeping bag, that's what we call a gerund. It's not serving as aspect or showing a progressive ing. So if we go down, we're going to look for more ings. If you want an example of progressive ing, we have utterance number 11. Well, I'm going swimming. Well, we see the I'm, so the am is the first verb in that sentence. right? So that's marked for tense. And then we have going, which is marked for aspect. And because it's an aspect marked form, we can call that progressive ing. Now I want to draw your attention just anecdotally to swimming that follows it. Swimming could be replaced by anything, and it's not indicating progressive aspect at all. It's just like a noun, okay? I'm going swimming, I'm going happily. You know, you could replace it with all sorts of things. So going, the ing there is actually the progressive ing form in this sample here. There's a few more if you're looking for them. Okay, how about plural s? Take a look. Do you see one? Utterance number 12 shows a plural floaty. So the plural s is on the floatee, making it floaties. Okay, preposition in. That would be number 7. They moved, but the table needed to be in here. So that shows a relationship of a location. And we have preposition on, which is actually in the following utterance, which is on the dirt, number 8. Possessive s. Well, I brought that up right at the beginning. I think it's dad's sleeping bag, utterance number 1. So that suggests that it belongs to dad. It's a possessive s morpheme. Regular past tense ed. We already talked about a few of them. They're everywhere, right? So there's 2 examples in utterance number 7 with moved and needed. Also number 17, swimmed. That's not a correct use of it, but it is something in there. Okay, irregular past tense. Now remember, this is showing that it happened in the past, but it doesn't have an ed at the end. So can you find it? There's only one that's correctly in there that I can see. It's actually utterance 18. He floatedly got it. Got is past tense. Okay, from get. Get would be present tense. Got is past tense, and it's irregular because there's no ed at the end of it. Regular third person singular present tense. I brought this up earlier. Likes in utterance number 3 shows that morpheme. Articles a, an, or the, and that one hopefully is pretty straightforward. We see it in utterance 2. We see it in utterance 8. So, contractible copula. Now remember, the difference between a copula and an auxiliary is that the copula is a be verb that is, am, are, was, were, one of those words, that is the only verb connected to the subject. In contrast, an auxiliary is where there's 2 verbs right next to each other, and the first one is one of those be verbs, okay, is, are, am, was, were. So if we're looking for a copula that is contractible, we are looking to see one of those words that could actually contract to the subject before it. So take a look. Hopefully you landed on utterance number 11. There's more than that, I believe, but utterance number 11 is a great, utterance 11, no, I counted that wrong. That's actually a great example of contractible auxiliary. And the reason is because A, obviously it's contracted, I am to I'm, but when I misspoke and said it was copula, I was wrong because going follows it immediately after, which is the second verb, which means that it's the auxiliary am for the 2 be verbs. Okay, so the contractible copula, sorry, it's going to take me a second. I got to look at it. I see one in utterance 5 that is not really contractible, but if the child said it correctly, it would be contractible. He are happy, number 5. But if he said it correctly, it should be he is happy or he's happy. And that's copula because there's only one verb in that sentence, and it's the be verb. Okay? But that is an example of an error that happens when we have a contractible copula. We have what we call obligatory context for it. It's supposed to be there, but then they used the wrong one. But technically, it's obligatory context for the contractible copula. Now, we found the contractible auxiliary. How about the uncontractible copula? Remember, there are a couple of reasons why it would be uncontractible. One, it cannot be contracted to anything because it's in the form of a question. Or two, it can't be contracted because it's one of the past tense was or were versions of to be. Or three, the phonological aspect of it means that we can't contract it because the sounding of it doesn't work. So can you find an uncontractible copula? Hopefully you found utterance number 16. He was wet. This is uncontractible because was can't contract to he and still keep its meaning of indicating that it happened in the past. But also, he was wet, that's the only verb. Was is the only verb in that sentence that's a be verb. So there's nothing else going on there. That's a copula. That's the main verb. Now, let's find the uncontractible auxiliary. It's utterance 15. Is he floating? Now notice, we've got the he, which is the subject, and we have two verbs in that utterance. It's is and floating. Now in regular sentence form, they'd be right next to each other, but because it's a question, we flipped a couple of them around, which means that the is cannot be contracted to the he. Is auxiliary because it precedes floating, which by the way is a progressive ing form, but it is not contractible to the he because it's before he in the sentence. Okay? All right, last one, irregular third person has or does. Remember this one, it's either has or does or it doesn't exist. Those are the only two options. Can you find it in this example? Hopefully you found utterance number 12. It's he has two floaties. That's the only example. All right, so we have a couple of things in here. I want you to specifically tell me what word in utterance number 10 is marked for tense. Oh, I lied. That should be utterance number 11. Sorry. Identify the word in utterance number 11 that is marked for tense. Okay, so it should be am. I'm going swimming. I is the subject. Am is the auxiliary. And going is the aspect, like the second verb right there. So the first verb is marked for tense, am. Okay? Now the word marked for aspect in the same utterance, number 11, hopefully you got is going, and that's marked for present progressive. Now I have a question for you. Look at utterance number 3. He likes camping. The word camping. Does that carry aspect? Why or why not? Think about that for a minute. The answer is no, it does not, because aspect only occurs on a second verb that happens right after an auxiliary verb, a helping verb. Okay? Now in utterance number 3 we have he likes camping. The verb is like. And it's not a helping verb, it's a regular verb, it's a lexical verb. So like has meaning all by itself, and it's marked for tense. And so camping is simply what we call a gerund. It means that it doesn't hold progressive ing aspect at all. It could be replaced by any noun. He likes kids. He likes food. He likes boats. He likes camping. Okay, so that one does not show an example of aspect. All right, so we also have a couple more here. We're just going to keep going through this. Which word in this utterance, or in this language sample, violates the rules for using inflectional and derivational morphemes? Remember those rules? We talked about them in class, about how we have like the order of appearance, and how we might have the number of allowable affixes that can or cannot be onto on a word. Those are the two I wanted you to focus on. Can you find an example of when one of those rules was violated? Hopefully you found utterance number 18. It's he floatedly got it. Okay, and it's an example of a violation of the order of appearance because floated should be a verb, float plus the inflectional morpheme ed, the past tense morpheme, right? But then if we add ly on it, that's derivational. But the rule is that the order that those show up has to be the inflection going last and the derivation going first. So technically it should be floatlied, even though that's not really an acceptable version either. But the ed and the ly should have been flip-flopped if it was going to follow the rule of the order of appearance. Okay? Now, this word was created, however, even though it's incorrect, technically because it has a derivational morpheme at the end of it, it was created through derivation, that word formation process that we talked about a week or so ago. Okay? All right, so we are going to, this is the last question series that I'm going to ask you. First, I want you to look through this language sample, and today we talked about grammatical features, right? And we dove into it and we analyzed it. We used our chart like this, where we marked all sorts of grammatical features on the Brown's 14 morphemes. I want you to look at this language sample and see if you can find a problem with a grammatical feature in the sample. What's wrong in here that could be explained by grammatical features? Take a look for a minute. Okay, so there's a few options here. You could say, you know, the bringed and the maked, utterance was 1 and 4, suggest that maybe this kid is struggling with tense and how to mark it. They're incorrectly using regular past tense ed instead of irregular past tense ed. You can also look at utterance number 6, he go to sleep. They totally removed tense, right? They just kind of left it in present tense, but clearly there needed to be some sort of change there. You could look at number 5, he are happy. Now remember, are is a to be verb, is, are, am, was, were, right? And the correct version would be he is happy. So are and is are both present tense, so that's not a tense issue, but it could be a person issue where it should have been he is. The is should have gone with the third person he. So that's something that you could say as well. I'm trying to see if there's anything else in there. They swimmed too. There's another example of what we call over-regularization, where we've added a regular past tense ed where it should have been an irregular swam. Similar, he don't need them, it should be he doesn't need them. So there's a few different options here. There might even be more that I skipped over, but those are all things where we find an error. We can look at it and say, is there a grammatical feature on that utterance or on that specific morpheme? And if so, is it indicating that this child is struggling with one of those features, and which one would it be? So it's kind of one of those analysis skills that you can just practice. Now, the last one, name all the grammatical features that are present on the word likes found in utterance number 3. So hopefully you're referring to this right here. The word likes has the third person singular present tense s on it, right? So if you look at the name, that tells you all you need to know, but think about it. The s on likes is giving us information about tense. It's happening in the present tense. It's giving us information about person because it's third person. It has to go with third person. And also, it has to go with, sorry, I'm just giggling because those balloons showed up, and apparently that's an AI thing that I didn't know existed in PowerPoint. So, yay for balloons. Can we do it again? Maybe? It works. Okay, that was something I didn't know happened. Sorry about that. So, third person, singular present tense s. We have tense for s. We have third person, and then we also have singular. So that's number. So we have person, number, and tense. That is all on that one little word likes in utterance number 3. Okay, hopefully it helped to talk through that a little bit. We will follow up with it in class on Monday. So if you have questions, come to office hours, or wait until Monday. We're going to ask and answer questions about this a little bit before we get started. So if you start your morphology review, don't submit it until you're feeling pretty confident about it. It's okay to be working on it and to ask some questions in class Monday before submitting it. It's not due for a whole week. It's not due till Wednesday. So hopefully that's helpful to you to kind of think about this, replay this as much as you want to walk through it. And as always, we're always happy to see you in office hours. So take care.